Hi everyone, Redthany Flannello here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Justin Timberlake album, Man of the Woods. Singer, entertainer, boy band, veteran pop superstar Mr. Justin Timberlake. He has now released his long-awaited follow-up to the critically acclaimed 2020 Experience back in 2013. And in the 5 years since the release of that album, Justin has drawn up pretty much a top to bottom but somewhat conflicted reinvention for this new record. Something that's pretty much signaled on the front cover of this thing, depicting Justin being torn between like two different worlds, two different selves. And on this thing, Justin, so to speak, is going back to his roots, his southern heritage, as the sounds of folk and country music kind of run throughout this thing, while also trying to keep a foot in the world of contemporary pop, which kind of sounds like a bold idea considering the current states of pop music and country music, but there are only actually a handful of moments on this thing where I think bringing these two worlds together actually works. While Justin still has some very sturdy vocal chops, and everybody probably went into this thing expecting good things given that the Neptunes handle a bulk of the production here, this album aesthetically is pretty much a mess right from the start. The start being the song Filthy, which is the worst attempt at making a seductive pop song that I've heard in a while. Like, what about this song is sexy? Is it Justin's corny lyrics? Is it the weak vocal mixing where Justin doesn't even really sound like the focal point in his own song? Is it the corny wobbling dubstep bass that plays throughout most of the track, which there's also an actual bass line too, which is kind of redundant. Of course, all this instrumentation clashes with the grand instrumental swell that sort of kicks the song off and occurs around the bridge of the track. The song Sauce on this thing a little while later sounds like a really awful caricature of funk music. Like, hey, just get like a peppy beat and some cartoony, silly, kooky guitar licks and a fuzzy bass line, and that's just funk, isn't it? That's just funk. It kind of sounds like I'm listening to Pharrell, like, write the worst Prince song ever. And it gets worse on the title track to this thing. That's where the country influences on this record really start to surface. And even though I like the rootsy vocal harmonies and the quaint lyrics on this track, of course the song is backed with this very round, rubbery, bouncy sub bass, which turns up everywhere on this album, even when it is not entirely appropriate. Like, I get that this is pretty much Pharrell's sound, and it typically works really well in his own music and in an NERD track. It sounds terrible set to country music. The song Wave literally sounds like a trap folk combination. Not only does the instrumentation sound ridiculous, but on top of that, at this point on the record, everything has been jumping around stylistically so much it feels like I'm listening to a Ween album, but without, like, I don't know, the good songwriting or the sense of humor. The song Supplies has a much more contemporary sound, no weird fusions of anything, but where the track really gets me is in its themes and in its lyrics. It seems like the whole purpose of the song is to test the hypothesis of, I wouldn't date you if you were the last man on earth. Because literally Justin uses the end of the world as like a seduction scenario on this thing. I'll be the generator, turn me on when you need electricity. I'll be the wood when you need heat. When shit goes down, I'll be the one with the level head. I've got supply, yis. Yo, girl, I'm a doomsday prepper. I'm a doomsday prepper. Does that turn you on? I want to show you the inside of my bunker, girl. I got 10 months worth of water down there. I get the desire to want to be a provider in a loving relationship, but Justin takes it to a level on this track where it's really creepy and it's really controlling. Now, I want to know everything. Don't leave a single detail out. I'll get my lighter. Just fell out. It makes me a generous lover. Doing something for someone just to get something out of them, that's not generosity. Generosity is not, hey, you're either with me or you freeze to death. The Hers interlude is a little weird, cloying piano detour featuring spoken word vocals from Jessica Biel, where she's kind of romanticizing the idea of a woman wearing her man's shirt, which, hey, you know, that's fine. It's cute. I get that. It's comfortable. It's bigger. It's baggier. But she's saying stuff like, it feels like it's armor. It feels like I'm wearing his skin. It's like a Buffalo Bill type situation. It puts the lotion on. It puts the lotion on. No one actually thinks this. No one actually thinks any of this. And of course, all of this builds up to the song Flannel on the album. Here's my flannel. which is actually a pretty sweet and folky tune. I like the songwriting in the song a lot. The very nice Simon and Garfunkel-esque vocal harmonies are sweet on the ears. But why is there like trap-style production quietly twittering away in the background underneath Justin's vocals and the acoustic guitars? It literally doesn't fit. Aesthetically, it sounds like crap. What's even weirder is the song's ending, because the track just kind of suddenly shifts into this abstract, spacious, experimental sound piece that feels like One O Tricks Point Never collaborating with Laurie Anderson. Yeah, it's that far out, it's that out of place, and it is that far removed from the song that preceded it. Again, it just sort of goes to show that this album is like a buffet of shit. The way all the genres on this record come together, it's like the equivalency of, I don't know, some barbecued wings, green jello, spaghetti and meatballs, guacamole, and then fried wontons, all on the same friggin' plate. But seriously, why do we need 808 drums and bouncy sub bass on every single track almost? God, just record a country song. Just record a folk ballad and leave it at that. Thankfully, toward the back end of the record, there are songs that don't feature quite as much of that. The album gets relatively more solid. The song Montana is likely my favorite track of the entire album. It's pretty much a nocturnal, sexy, groovin' synth funk track, and it's one of the few moments on the album where the electronic instrumentation and the acoustic instrumentation comes together pretty nicely. That and the song Hard Stuff, which is a moment on the record where it feels like all the instrumentation, it's coming together synthetically, but the textures are there, and they feel a bit rootsier, and the balladry isn't overshadowed by just how garish the beats are. And the lyrics of this track are pretty endearing, about just wanting to be in a relationship where you're there for the hard stuff, you're going through the tougher moments. Certainly less generic and overly sentimental than the track he did with Alicia Keys on this thing, which, I mean, the lyrics are so general on here. I mean, how could anybody really walk away from this track being impressed with it as a love song? That's not to say that it's not one of the better tracks on the record, though. Like, it's much more listenable than some of the other cuts on here, and Alicia Keys and Chris Stapleton actually do provide some great vocal moments on the album that are kind of refreshing after enduring the very rough first leg of this thing. We also have the song Breeze Off the Pond, which is pleasant, it's listenable. It kind of feels like an old school Michael Jackson song, but the lyrics are not substantive at all. Like, Justin spent the afternoon outside and was like, whoa, I gotta write a song about the grass and the trees and the pond and the wind. It's like, I guess what would happen if Michael Jackson had to force a collaboration with Phil Elverum or something. There's literally a point in the lyrics where Justin references going canoeing while high. So I guess being stoned in a canoe all day in the wilderness, this is pretty much the inspiration you're gonna walk away with. Sparkly waves, dude, the waves. Then you have some like really ridiculous displays of macho naturalism on the track Living Off the Land. Justin singing on this track like he's some kind of like farmer or like frontiersman or mountain man. Of course, there are moments on the track that feature the 808 bass and percussion again. All those 49ers back in the day, all those guys panning for gold, they were the real trappers. They were the real OGs. Guys, I'm not gonna keep beating a dead horse here. Like, the album is a mess. It's really weird to think that professionals assembled this, and at no point did they think that, like, wow, these sounds, they really don't complement each other that well. They really don't go together. I mean, I'm sure Justin and Pharrell to a degree were aware that what they were doing here was a little unorthodox, and maybe they were just like throwing crap at the wall and just seeing, hey, you know, maybe it'll stick. Because you never know what's gonna be a hit, you never know what the audience is gonna take to. And occasionally on this album, it does kind of work. I feel like there are at least a few high points on here. Montana, again, love that track. Hard Stuff, I think, is really good. Also, I like Midnight Summer Jam, which is one of the only moments on the album where I can hear Justin, I can hear the Michael Jackson influence, I can hear the Pharrell production, I can hear the country vibes coming off of the acoustic instrumentation and the fiddles. It feels very pop. It feels very contemporary. A lot of different things and influences going on at once, and yet it's all coming together pretty harmoniously. It's not really canceling itself out. It almost feels like a song that in a lot of ways could have been on the 2020 Experience, but it's got that country flair to it, so it's a little different. And in a way, I feel like Justin and Pharrell are a more natural combination of artists than Justin and Timbaland, because Pharrell's production to me is a little bit sexier, a little bit groovier. However, if Justin was ever going to work with Pharrell on an album, this was the wrong album to do it on. Like, the album where you go folk, the album where you go country, that's the record where you want to team up with Pharrell? Really? Seriously? There are a few other tracks on here that I would say are pretty listenable or pleasant. The song Higher Higher, for sure. But songs on here that are tolerable, songs on here that are good, are in the vast minority. Most of this album sounds incredibly off, incredibly corny, bordering on ridiculous, or just straight ridiculous. I'm feeling a strong 3 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave a thoughtful comment in the comments if you're feeling full of thoughts. Over here next to my head is another Justin Timberlake album review you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one forever.